it told me I needed to register. And then I kept going back into my email and it wasn't showing up for the confirmation email. I don't know. So,
Well, this is why
this
this is
was
just
Zoom on Zoom's end, though, not your end.
well, this is again just me trying to figure out the software, which is why this is just kind of me trying to figure out the software. I'm not charging for it.
Look,
Nothing. Just
I am no judgment zone. I am excited to just be hear what you have to say. So if you don't want to record, I don't care what happens. We can even wait till I know it's a Mercury retrograde. I get it.
that's not helping.
It's
Yeah.
not,
Well
especially
then,
when you're ruled by it. I actually happen to be ruled by it, so
lovely. All right, because what
yeah.
I've been trying to do also, since I can't get the printer to work,
Hmm.
then I thought I could use the camera on my phone. So now this is what to show I could write it on paper, but now I've got to try to figure out how to log in on my phone because I'm on my computer talking to you now. So let's see if I can figure this out.
Okay.
If I can get, no, that's not logging out either. How do I log out?
Do you want to me to log out and then
No, no,
log back
no, it's my
in?
phone. I'm trying to log out on my phone so I can log back in. Here we go. Switch account. All right. And add account. Yeah, because then what I can do if I can, oh, okay. Radiant Living at Outlook, right? Radiant Living at Outlook, right?
Yeah.
Radiant Living at Outlook. Okay. All right. And then you had that crazy ass password. Let me see if I can copy that. Because if I can't get the printer to work and I can't get the screen to work, I'm thinking that maybe I can get my phone to work and I can show what I wanted to show on paper. Let's see if I can figure this out. Okay. June. Yeah, and you bringing Uranus into the game makes you a great astrologer, I'm sure, but
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if I'm great.
well, you have
You're
talent.
always learning.
Always.
The more and more I read, I've been reading a lot of mundane astrology recently, of course, because of the geopolitical
Oh yeah.
situation that we're in the world, not only our country. But I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot. So I've been expanding my horizons with and the rules and things like that. But there's so many rules.
Oh geez. Yeah. And that's the thing I was telling somebody else. And I guess we should start recording. You want to go ahead and start recording? I'll figure this out.
Um,
Or are you recording right now yet?
I think it already started. Yeah, but I can cut
Okay.
the beginning out when.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, that's why I've got you doing the editing. You can do the edit of this part.
Yeah.
Because, what I wanted to start with is I've been hearing that a lot with some of the people that say they want to join the the learning experience is that, oh, I can't do this, I'm not good at that, and I'm like, you're always learning. There's no way one human in one lifetime can learn everything.
No.
Right, like a thousands and year old practice, and then throw Vedic in the mix, and it's like, all right, I yeah.
Exactly.
The sidereal people always make their way in, but I
Oh,
listen to it. I mean, it sounds about that's an intense practice right there.
well, my first real teacher was a siderealist. And boy,
Mhm.
let me tell you, that was an experience because, I, I was learning his way, but it wasn't making sense. Now, granted, this guy was amazing, okay,
Mhm.
at what he did. I mean, he just blew me away, but I couldn't grasp it, you know? And
Yes.
then I began to understand that, well, he's a man, number one. Number two, he's like a programmer because he actually programmed some of the first astrology software. So I
Oh,
began to realize that, well, this is just the way his mind works. So it doesn't, that's when I started getting into the whole, well, how can his system work for him, but it doesn't work for me, but my system works for me. So that's why I let go of the,
maybe it has something to do with our lineage too.
yes,
Maybe Greek and Roman people come from those regions, the Mediterranean versus, I believe it's perspective for
Well,
me.
that's
That's why I like Western astrology.
all right. Now it's not letting me access the camera. Oh my God. I can't get the printer to work. And now my phone is not
My,
letting me access.
my
Oh my
first
God.
astrology teacher actually he was a heliocentric astrologer. That's because he did financial markets.
Oh,
That was
right.
really interesting. But he taught me the Western stuff. And I don't know if you know Jacob Schwartz. He wrote a book on asteroids. He was fascinated with them. He's passed away now.
Yeah.
I studied with him for a little bit too, but I'm 57. I'm going back into my 20s and, into my early 30s that I did that kind of intense studying.
Right.
Like for a while there, Neptune got hold of me. Well, in my seventh house. So, for a very long time. So, so now I feel like I'm ready to get work cracking again.
Right. Well, see, that's kind of, you hit on actually kind of what I wanted to talk about. Two main things I wanted to talk about for like this session. One is the idea of like this is the right system. Because a lot of times I see people get confused because they're starting to learn, but they don't realize what system they're learning. So then they get onto this other like thread for, say, Vedic or something, and they get all confused and they don't realize, no, you're in a different system and you need to like stay in your lane or you're going to get confused. Because I
Yeah,
can go into Vedic and I am lost.
right, exactly.
And
Hmm.
then, I learned sidereal with Peter, but it didn't work for me. Just, and you're right, it's something to do with the mindset. And that's what it's kind of like, how do aliens talk to us in our own language? Well, everybody's different, you know?
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
the thing I found with astrology is if it works for you, do it. I found what works for me that I can do amazing stuff on the Western astrology. I
Right.
amaze the hell out of myself. I
Yeah.
mean, so, I
Well,
mean,
for
I've
me,
actually found
like the
people.
West, I don't know if I feel like you are this way. I feel that's why I'm actually attracted to you. I actually, when I'm looking at things, and maybe somebody asks me something and I'm looking at I actually start to be able to like channel it through.
Like,
Like it's almost like things start to just, once I'm in the groove, I'm like, things start to just come to me where I don't have
yes.
to necessarily. But what I really want to do is be able to really get into the actual technical things about it that are more, where it's in really, really in here versus the actual channeling through of what it is that I'm trying to convey.
Yeah, because this to me is, everything's for a reason. I mean, here's this great, amazing astrologer who's teaching me. I was like 16 at the time. And, I've got all of his time and he's doing sidereal. And, I was coming from at 16, what did I know? I knew horoscope astrology basically, right?
Right, exactly.
And that was his big argument with me is he would, kind of like, verbally smack me saying, you're using your psychic abilities again. Stop it. You need to use the astrology. And he really had me hone in on the science. However, this is where I began to change lanes and realize there's different kinds of astrology for a reason, not only for the people, but also I think for the purpose. Because you're right, I spent a lot of time with him on the stock market. He actually made $1 million on Black Monday. He wrote
Wow.
one of the first programs for the stock market. That was insane to do it in
Yeah.
DOS, but there it was. I
Yeah.
mean, everything was exactly, he could predict, say, wheat, gold, all of that. Amazing in sidereal. I'm looking at it in tropical going, oh, I'm not getting
Right.
anything, right? Then
Right.
the
Exactly.
financial astrologers like, Meriden comes in with the corporations and the stocks and all that. They're again doing sidereal. Okay. Well, and the way it was explained to me, and it makes sense because I also have had friends at the time that were astronomers that explained to me, your astrology can't possibly work because the planets have moved,
That's
which is the whole reason behind sidereal and tropical is that sidereal is based on where the planets technically are in reality at this moment. Okay,
yeah.
but the tropical is supposedly based on where everything was at the time of Christ, like 2000 years ago. Okay,
Mhm.
so I spent a lot of time trying to reconcile a lot of this in my head. Okay. And what I finally began to understand is that if I'm trying to find a missing person, then you know what? The planets aren't really what's guiding me. They're not. How could possibly the planets guide me to where a specific person is or where my cat went to? My cat went missing 3 times and I found it with horary, that kind of thing.
Right.
But
Right.
at the same time, I can't use straight intuition in something like the stock market. I do need something scientific.
Exactly.
So that's where I've had to learn to shift gears. Like if I'm going to do the stock market, I've been talking in my group about lucky stars. Now, what we did with lucky stars is we actually tested that. Him and I would go down, Peter and I would go down to the track and we would try to gauge the horses. He'd be doing sidereal, I'd be doing tropical. Okay. Then we'd go in the casinos and gamble. We'd take a bag of pennies. Literally, I'm not kidding. We'd take a bag of pennies in the casino and try to figure out what lucky times meant. Now, this is where it got really tricky in my mind. And that's where I appreciate Lois Rodden. I'd ordered a book to talk about it this class, but it hasn't come yet. Because Lois Rodden was like, all you guys with your lucky times, she says, you don't understand that if you're going to win enough to change your life, like be that big ball lotto winner,
Mhm.
that's got to show in your natal. It's not going to just, oh, this is a great time. Well, it might be a great time for somebody else, not you. And
Right.
she did is she then went out and started researching all the big lotto winners. And what
Mm.
she found is that there are patterns in
Right.
every big lotto or say a big gamble win. There was
Mhm.
patterns. She also found patterns with somebody who made their money in the stock market. Now, this is to me, this is again where I scratched my head for years trying to reconcile this. I'm like, okay, so we have times when all of our like luck for this kind of finances and gambling converge. And yeah, I'd make, a couple of grand maybe in the casino on those times, but Lois was right that it wasn't like the $1 million win that would change my living.
Right. Right.
Okay. Now, granted, it would help. And I see a lot of, in Vegas, I see a lot of that. I see guys that'll go out, they make a couple $100 a day and they're happy. They can live off that.
Right.
But
Right.
if you think you're going to make that $1 million win or that killing in Bitcoin, your natal had better reflect it, you
Right.
know?
You
And
mean as
that's
far as the time of your birth, not necessarily the transits?
no,
But
not the transit. It's got to, and that was the
it's
other
got to
thing.
show in the actual time of birth. Okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't
Another
clear.
common thread where astrologers confuse the hell out of themselves is they look at the natal, but the natal is your whole life. I mean, your absolute birth to death and beyond, even. Because for a while I got into near death experiences and what happens after death, the funerals and things like that. So even after that, death shows in your natal. But when something kicks off,
Mm.
when, you're going to get married, when your mother's going to die, that kind of thing, that's the progressions. That shows up in the secondary
I was just
progressions.
going to ask you about that. The
Yeah.
second, is it the secondary progressions?
And then,
Yes.
of course, secondary progressions, however, only give you a 3-year window. You've got the degree approaching, the exact degree, and the degree after. So that's a big
Mhm.
window within that 3-year span of time. So that's
Sure.
again where the transits and the lunations, because what I found was the transits will get me about the month. Okay. But then I have found that it actually needs like what I mean by lunation is an eclipse or a full moon or something has to click off on that moon and then boom, things go off like a shot, you know?
Right. What
I
happened on February 17th? And then the war and all that stuff. Like
Yeah, that's a
something
prime
had to.
example.
Mhm.
Exactly. We were all going, we know it's coming. And then the
Yeah, we know.
lunation hit and bam, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and that's the thing
And
with
then
mundane
I
astrology
had
too.
seen the 3 charts of the different they were all born under an eclipse, but Trump was the one that was born under a lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
Bibi and Netanyahu and the Ayatollah were born under a solar eclipse. They all have similar Mars in fixed Leo,
Yeah.
so So
And
I'm
that was
saying
something else. No, that was something because, like, in the
yeah, I mean,
previous
I saw it
classes,
all over. And you know what's so nice about being with you today? I have to say, I really am so happy to be, because it's so lonely to know these things and not be able to talk to people about them. Besides, going like this, because like I try to tell my husband, he's like, after like all these years, he's like, I still don't know what the hell you're talking about, you know.
no, you hit exactly why I started these classes, is
Yeah, they
because,
think you're
I could
crazy.
babble to my
You need
mother
the
all day long about
camaraderie,
this,
for
right?
Christ's sake. Yeah, you need the camaraderie. Yeah, for sure.
Or even to bounce
Every
off
person.
ideas and what do you think this
Yes.
means, or because that's the other,
Mm,
we don't have all the answers. So I mean,
mm,
and this is what's hard for me is people like Peter, my mother,
yeah.
all the Sydney Omar was another, I mean, all these great Lois Rodden, she was a great one. That woman could find out anybody's birthday. I mean, that woman was a beast when she could find, the birth certificate. I mean, that woman collected, she was the first one to collect birth times. So I'd call her up every time I'd want a celebrities chart or somebody, before computers, before the internet, right? But these
Yeah.
people have all passed on. And I
That's
look
that's what
around one
happened
day,
with
they're
me.
gone.
The Jacob Schwartz gone. The Philadelphia Astrological Society is gone.
Yep.
There are so many places where I would have like, oh, let me go to a seminar or something, and it's like they're not
They're
nowhere.
gone.
They're nowhere to be
Exactly.
found. So, it is frustrating. And it's also frustrating when you can see something in your own child's chart or your own, and then like, how do you delicately go about, not trying to scare the shit out of them? You know what I mean? Like, what do
Exactly.
you do, And so it's very, that's why astrologers should and get paid the money that they do, because you're a psychologist, you're a mathematician, you're, you're all of these things. And, people don't really understand it. And I feel that, whole psychic hotline kind of put like, such a lower bar
It
on
did.
practice,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. And see, you also hit on, this is a good subject. Actually, I did want to cover this week, and that's what I call the ethics of being a reader. Because if you're
Mhm.
doing this for yourself, great, knock yourself out, right?
Right.
But
Mm.
the minute you start crossing over, and this is why I value, in a way, again, everything for a reason. When I was coming up in the 70s, it was actually illegal to be a reader. They would, and I would see it, they would actually arrest you if you tried to do any type of card reading, astrology. It was under the fortune telling laws. So
Okay.
to bypass that, what had happened is my mother did not know what to do with me at 13. We had all kinds of, psychic phenomena going on in the house. She did not know what to do with me. So she took me down. At that time, they had the paranormal research department down at UCLA. So they actually tested me, and they,
Mm.
ruled out, no, you don't have a brain tumor. No, you're not crazy. And then they came back and said, oh, guess what? You really are, psychic.
Love
And
this.
that's where it started to get dark, because that,
Mhm.
of course, we didn't know at the time, no
Mhm.
internet, the
Love
connection
it.
of why there was a paranormal research department down there. And that's why I remember my mother, protecting me, because they were all like, oh, let's do this, we'll put you here, we'll put you there. My mother's like, no, 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 no. And she was the
Right.
one that told me that, Hitler had come for the astrologers first and gave me that history, to be
Yeah.
like really careful of what
Mhm.
you're doing, and that's something that I'm seeing online. Because and then what they did was, when I said, well, now what do I do about this, because I'm walking around, I was literally kicked out of school because I kept making prophecies to people, the teachers and the students, and scaring them. I'm the only
Right.
person I know that's kicked out of school for this, right? So my mom's like, what do I do with her? So they said, go
Mhm.
to the spiritualist church. And under the religious exemption, we were allowed to read. But of course, we had to have the religious background so we didn't get arrested. But one of
Mhm.
the most valuable things at that time, is that we got taught ethics. And
Right.
the older I've gotten, and the things that you see in somebody's chart. For example, when I was young, I used to blurt out things like, you had an abortion, to somebody with her husband sitting there.
Right.
I've
Right.
learned I don't do that now,
No, it's not.
because he may not know about this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing things that they may not want anybody else to know about.
Right.
So I've learned to
Exactly.
demand privacy. No, I'm not going to stick you online. No, I'm not going to do you in front of your husband or your best friend. Because I've also been in situations where I'm telling a woman, well, she's telling me that she thinks her husband is cheating on her. And then the woman who's doing it is her best friend sitting next to her at the table. What do you do in that situation? Now, over the years, we've
Well,
seen that if you
we could
tell
make some money with that one.
exactly. But the thing is,
No,
and there were cases of this where we learned we don't go there because especially men, if you tell a man that his wife is cheating, he'll kill her.
right. He
So,
could.
we've had to learn that there are certain things. One, we can't diagnose things, right, medically, because then we're going to get in trouble for practicing medicine without a doctor. We can't give legal advice because then we're going to get the lawyers after us. There's a
Mhm.
case in the news right now where a woman accused a man of killing and he sued her for 10 million for defamation. That's another thing. You don't say something in public unless you got solid proof. You don't
That's
run
true.
around saying somebody's a killer unless there's like solid proof. I
Yeah.
mean, that's reckless right there. But see, that ties into I was taught you don't read anyone without their permission.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if something's in the news, okay, maybe you've got a little bit of leeway. But if there's a family involved and it's an active case, that I'm going to talk to the family first. I'm not going to just butt in there without talking to the family first.
Right.
And that was another case that I also learned. Dorothy, when I spent time back east with Dorothy Allison, she was famous for her murder cases. And she told me her secret was, of course, horary astrology. And I'm like, well, why don't you tell people you're doing horary? She's, nah, rather than think I'm psychic, you know, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
I'd,
I mean,
I'd
I
like
got
to
that.
I'd like to perfect my game at horror too. I struggle with that. I do, I have to say, but it's instinctual too. Like I can follow the signs and what the current where it is and things like that, but
Oh,
I
she was brilliant. She taught
I
me how to
struggle with
do.
that one. Mhm.
She taught me how to tell the description of the killer, how he killed her, where he put the body. I mean, she taught me so much in horary astrology, but she
Is
also
there a
impressed upon
similar
me.
book? I'm sorry, the like Rex's book with the rulership, his rulership
The
book.
rulerships
Is there
help.
something? No, is there something that because horror seems to have so many more specific, or can you use that book for your horror practices also?
When we were doing the murder missing persons, the two books that we used the most,
Mm-hmm.
okay, was of course the rulership book, but
Okay.
also the medical book.
The
Because if
next,
I wanted a physical description of someone, or say a description of the murder, how did he kill her? Did he strangle her? Did he stab her?
right,
All that
right.
was in the medical book. So we were able to apply what we learned from
Very
Cornell's medical book and also the rulership. But also, that's what I was trying to do today was she had a way of animating things to where you would be able to look at that and go, oh, there's the killer. Oh, there's the victim. But her and Noreen Ramirez, another psychic detective, both of them, because of course I was young and dumb when I was doing this, they
mhm.
emphasized do not get involved in an active murder case unless the police are actively working with you
With
you
you.
know and
Hmm.
and I did not understand that back in the 90s, and after this case I contact the police and the family, and then I only work with them if they want me to, but I
That's
have an
amazing.
idea on how to work around
Yeah.
that for the
I'm
now, the
totally
modern, the
with
internet. But here's what happened. I called up,
you.
I don't know if you remember the Susan Smith case where her two kids were stolen and she claimed some black guy had kidnapped her kids.
Yes, the one that put
This is
them in
back
the
in the
river,
90s. Yeah, we didn't
put
have
them in the
internet. And so what I
river.
did was I looked
The
up
one
her
that
phone
drove
number.
their car in the river, that one? Is that the
Yes.
one? Okay,
And
okay.
so at the time, all I knew is that they were in a nearby river in the car. That's all I was getting at the time, which is another thing with you're only going to get so much. You don't get names in astrology, but I was getting, okay, they're underwater in the car. And stupid me, called up and I looked up Susan Smith, called her up and said, can you send me a map? Because this is again before the internet. Can you send me a map of the area? Because I know that there's a barn nearby, there's a water, and I can find it on a map. And she started acting very strange. Because any other mother that I call with their kids missing, they're like more than eager to help me, right? She
Mm,
started waffling and back, and I was like, okay, that's really weird. And I remember hanging up the phone going, God, she's acting funny. Well, unbeknownst to me, the detective on the case was, of course, listening to the calls, and he thought it was weird too. So he then
mm,
confronted her, saying, your reaction was not normal. Why don't you just come clean? And she
right.
did. She actually came clean because of that. But on the other hand, I realized that's great. Yeah, but what if I'd really screwed that up? You know what I mean? What if I stumbled onto something and screwed up evidence or screwed up something for the case? I mean, because my legal background as a paralegal, I could have really blown that case by
Right.
what I said and getting involved. Another example, there's a guy in jail right now in Las Vegas, Chad Ollinger. And I had written him and talked to him briefly about his case, about what I thought was going on with his murder case. And then his lawyer got a hold of me and was like screaming, they're listening to the call. Stop talking to him. And I'm like, okay. So
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
to be really careful on open, active cases, in other words.
Yes.
And then,
I don't know if I'm such an empath, like I can't even watch like things where like there's violence, it like I feel it in my body.
mhm.
I don't know
I
if
do
I would
too.
be you're the same way?
Yes.
That's why it would be very difficult for me, I think, to be involved in that. Like even this whole like I tell everybody I know, do not read those Epstein files. It is a traumatic abuse.
Yeah,
Why would you do that to yourself?
they call it vicarious trauma.
Yeah, like why would you put yourself through that? And that is exactly, in my opinion, what it was, a psyops on the American people to traumatize them and literally say, and there isn't anything that you could do about it. So, to me, it was like, why are we reading that? We already know the horrors that happened. We
No,
already
it's
know
interesting
in
you
our
brought that up
mind,
though, because here's the
you
thing
know.
that Dorothy and Noreen impressed upon me. Because at the time when I was, back there, back east with Dorothy, the plan was, all as you saw, most of these people were older. I was younger, so
Right.
the plan was they wanted to mentor me to take over their practice. Okay, so
Hmm.
that's why I was getting all this attention. And Dorothy even found us an office. We were going to set up an office and we were going to basically do psychic detective work. And one thing she brought up, little known thing, is she never asked for money on her cases. True, that was her reputation, but she made a fortune in reward money. That's where she was
Mm,
getting millions. She showed me the bank accounts, like your
wow.
money comes from the rewards. I'm like, wow, if it's done
Mhm.
right. And
Right.
but one of the things she impressed upon me and why I backed away from it at the time is I got to meet her husband. I got to meet her kids. And she also talked about exactly what you said, is that when you are tuning into that frequency of this
Mhm.
kind of case, she
Right.
said, not only do you feel them, but they feel you.
Mhm.
And she
Exactly.
said, you're actually building up a connection with these kind of people. Okay. And what happened is I saw the trauma on her family. Her kids were really messed up because of it. And the
Right.
fear. I mean, she would get death threats from active cases, from guys that would, be threatening her from jail. So sometimes her kids would have to go into hiding. They talked about Christmas where, they had to go into hiding because of some death threats and all that. It was really, and my daughter was only like 3 or 4 at the time. So
Mm.
now I saw that I had a
This is
Uranus
your daughter
opposition.
online with you?
Not right now, no. She's
Oh, oh,
34 now, but
oh,
she's 34 now. But at the time,
oh,
she was like 3 or 4. And I had a
um,
very sweet husband from Nebraska, and I'm going, I don't think he's going to go for me digging up bodies in the middle of the night. So
mhm,
I told Dorothy, this is how we fell out, is I said, look, I have a Uranus opposition coming to my son.
mhm,
I am bracing for anything. I said,
mhm,
so I don't want to start anything, not with Uranus opposing my sun, which is also really my 10th. I said, basically, I know that my life is going to be wrecked So I don't
Mm.
want to build anything right now. Later, my daughter's older, you know, then I'm going to come back to you. Now, she said to me that freaked me out. She goes, I'm going to die of a heart attack in 96. She says, I don't have that long. And she died of a heart attack in 96. So
I
it's
think I
like,
may have read that you posted something about that, I believe.
yeah.
Okay, I
So
think I did read that.
all
I
I could
did,
think of
but
is,
not post, not all the details that you gave me.
yeah,
That's
the
really
connections there.
fascinating.
And that's why I just said, I'm going to wait till and that's where I go. And I talked about the gambling is that, yes, you can do things to a point, but is it your time?
Right,
I'm looking at my own chart and I'm going, do I have the chart of, say, a psychic detective who makes money off reward money? Not yet.
right.
That's what I saw in my chart, was not until now. But I saw this back in the 90s. I'm like, I need to wait. I'm going to have to be older. And one of the astrologers, her theories that backed it up was Ivy Jacob Goldstein. She's got so many theories that sound so quacky when you look at them. When you go through her books, you're like, that can't possibly be true. But then you start running her formulas and you're like, oh my God, she's right. And
Now,
one
when
of the
you, I wanted to go back and just ask you a real quick question. When you said that you knew that you would see something later on because it was, that
it
up
wasn't
until
my
it
time.
wasn't your time. Was it
Yeah.
strictly that Uranus, or were there Saturn in natal that would inhibit you to
Oh,
not?
absolutely. And that's where I go back to my rule of three that I talk about a lot because yeah, I don't look at one thing. I never look at one thing because it could be anything. It could
Yeah,
be this, that. It could be my environment. It could be my spouse. It could be my kid. How do I know it's even me? So I look at three, I want three references to tell me the same thing. Yes, I
right.
had the Uranus opposition. I also had Pluto squaring my sun. I'm like, whoa,
Now,
I mean, I
yeah,
looked at that. I mean, I was looking at, and one of my other old friends, like we said, we used to share things. I called up another astrologer named Walt, who was amazing. And I go, do you see what I see? Like, he goes, you better buckle up, honey. I mean,
yeah.
and it was bad. I mean,
Mm.
when I got basically
I
drugged to
could only
Vegas, you know,
imagine.
my
Mhm.
mother started dying, my grandmother started dying, my daughter started getting sick, my husband started getting sick. I had a stroke. I mean, it was one thing after the other. And the whole time I'm going, okay, I knew this was coming. Maybe not exactly, right? But
Right,
I
but you
knew,
knew that
yeah.
there was challenges that are ahead that were going to be doozies, and that's what I try to tell people when they want to question astrology and say, look, well, why would I want to know? Well, if you knew that you had to move in 6 months versus a month, would you pick 6 months? I would pick six
Well,
months
why you would want to know? I mean, here I've got all these people, like at that
At least
time
you
back
can
then.
prepare a little bit.
Well, think about it. These people we're offering me an office and a house back east to open up
Yeah,
this like psychic detective agency, and the Sci-Fi Channel wanted to televise it, and we were talking with the Warrens about films I mean, all this stuff's going on, but I'm looking at my chart saying it's not time. So I
yeah.
pulled back. Now, if I had, it would have been here's another example. At that same exact time, Psychic Friends Network offered me $5 million. They were
Mm.
starting this all night radio program. They said, like Art Bell
Mhm.
at that time, they said, we're going to broadcast all night. And they said, and it's very hard to find someone that here's the problem with psychics is if you're wrong in about a week or two, people are going to start calling back in saying you're wrong.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
But at that point, yeah, but at that point, I had been on K Rock radio for a year, and week after week after week, people were saying, what you told me came true. What you told me came true. That is extremely rare. So
Yeah.
that's why, of course, they come to me, say, we're going to give you a contract, $5 million to host this show.
Mm.
Sounds fantastic, right? But
But
I'm
when you
looking at
get
my chart and I'm
something
looking at the
like
chart and it's going,
that,
well, what turned out is, of course, it was all a scam. What
yes.
they were doing with Psychic Friends Network was selling this show to
Mhm.
the new self-help satellite network that Tony Robbins had just started. So they
Yeah.
had sold it, as a package to this network. like as a broker, basically, with me supposedly running the show. And then they
Right.
turned around and basically dumped the whole thing. And when I started getting in the books, seeing they weren't paying anybody, they're sure they're going to offer me 5 million if I'm not going to get paid. Linda Georgian wasn't getting paid. All these psychics were not getting paid that were fronting for them, right? So I said, okay, you need to give me money up front if we're going to do this, or I'm not going to trust you. Not what I'm seeing. Not what I'm seeing astrologically. I'm not buying it. So they turned around
You
and
would
got
have been
Miss
the fall
Cleo.
guy. Yeah.
Well, they turned around and said, okay, fine. And they
Mhm.
got Miss Cleo and went down in flames,
Yes.
And I warned him that. I said, you bring that woman in, you're going to get criminal charges passed against you. I mean,
Right.
you keep taking people's money saying that you're going to give them lucky winning numbers, you're going to get
Mm,
sued. And they
right.
did. That's exact. I mean, there's a whole documentary about Miss Cleo and Psychic Friends. Now, am I glad I walked away from that? Oh,
Yeah.
hell yeah, I'm glad I walked away
Right.
from all
But
that,
at least
right?
you saw that there was trouble. Trouble.
Absolutely. When they
That's
call,
the
there was
biggest
another thing.
thing.
They call me. I'd see Neptune Angular. They're lying to me,
Mm,
So it wasn't just my chart seeing all these. I'm not seeing money and prosperity coming to me. They're talking 5 million. I'm not seeing $5 million in my chart. So
right.
I know something isn't jiving here, right?
Yeah.
They're talking about me on the Sci-Fi Channel in a movie. I'm not seeing this kind of notoriety. So if I'm not now, that's why I backed away because otherwise it would have been like even worse. I mean, what would I have done if I was strapped to a radio show every night doing a broadcast and my mother's dying of cancer and my grandmother's dying of cancer? Well, I mean, think about what a disaster this would have been, you
Yes.
know? So
Well,
I think,
that's one of the reasons why I just am fascinated by the astrology in itself because I mean I had very difficult transits myself. Like I had Saturn, Neptune going in my seventh house. I
oh
mean just a
dear.
lot. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
like disappointments of. I mean I'm with my husband still, but I mean even like just so many relationship things, and then but Saturn came along. I had Neptune there, but Saturn came along and made me punch me in the face and made me really see it.
that's
you
brutal
know
reality is
the
Saturn. Yeah.
brutal reality. But I am Saturn, so I'm not lying to you. Every Saturday I honor Saturn because I have to, because that it's the bitch of my it's the apex. It's in the eighth house. It's the apex to my T square of my moon and my Venus. It's the apex to my yod. I mean, it's like, and I have 10th house planets and I have a Capricorn moon. I'm Saturn out.
And you know
That's
what,
who
though? You're bringing
I
up a very
am.
good point. Let me tell you what I
Oh,
mean by a good point is that by knowing ahead of time that you've got something coming. Did I lose you? Am I still here?
No, no.
Okay.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
I want to hear what you have to
I'll
say.
give you an example. Let me give you an example. People say, well, what's the point of knowing? Well, there is a lot you can change. I've learned there's some things you can't. That's a different story. But on the things you can, here's a good example. I get these curious things where I just study people for months on end. And I one time connected up with the addiction community and I started charting addicts, and I was able to predict when they'd get clean and when they were off the deep end. I was able to predict relapse and using and all that, as well as their sobriety. Now, what I found interesting about that is that they were actually pretty identical transits as well as the progressions. As I'm looking
Mhm.
at it, and what I began to realize is if you look at the very core of, say, AA, they get sober by what? Focusing on helping another alcoholic. So
Exactly.
what they're doing is they're
Story of my life.
translating the energy. It's still the same energy, but
Mhm.
it's translated into a different way.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why I started doing this, I'm like saying, okay, I need to start recording classes. I need to start gearing up for a podcast. Why? Because I'm looking at my chart. I've got a lot of stuff going on with Neptune right now. And Neptune
Mhm.
can make you or break you. Now, for
It
this,
almost
Neptune's
broke
great.
me, buddy.
If you're going to be a psychic, if you're going to be helping people spiritually, fantastic. But the
Mhm,
other
mhm.
possibility, is that I could wind up very sick. I
Yeah.
could be pumped full of medication. You know what I mean? There's some other negatives with
Oh,
Neptune, right?
there was a time when I was drinking
Then
pretty
you
good.
know what I mean. You know?
Oh yeah. But when that Saturn came, even just when Saturn entered Pisces,
Mm-hmm.
2.5 it was like this smack in the face of, okay, listen, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna continue to take this out on you?
But you hit on it. A lot of people get sober. A
But
lot of
thank
people I found get
God
sober with
I
Saturn.
saw that.
And you're right, Saturn could be negative, but in that case,
No,
it's not
Saturn's
because
been
getting you
my
into
friend.
reality is what you need to come back to center, right?
Yes.
So this is where
Saturn is a
people,
bitch. However, I
it
have to
can be
say,
good.
I wouldn't be this the strength of me now would never have come had I not go through that. I
Right.
mean, that's real, and I tell everybody that who's having a Saturn transit, because Saturn was opposite my Pluto. I have Virgo rising with Pluto Uranus on the ascendant. I am. It was coming at me. I had
Exactly.
the eclipses hit that. Remember that?
That'll do it too. And
And
that's
it
why
was
I've learned
like
that if you don't work a
bump.
program, you're gonna
And
continue
I
to
didn't go to
use.
AA or anything like that. I'm not.
But whatever it is you're doing, you had to get
It
real,
was like,
right?
yeah, I literally had Saturn made me see that that okay, for one, either you're going to kill yourself, basically,
Mm-hmm.
because you're gonna. No, I didn't know. I know I'm not ready to die yet. I don't know if I'll make it past this Uranus transit late Gemini, but I'm okay with that. Take me out of this fucking timeline. You gotta laugh about it. You know what I mean? What are you gonna do?
But you tipped off another subject we should cover though. Actually, because somebody came into me.
Like,
No, you
hey,
you you
I
tip
lived
up
a
a
good
good
life. I
subject
really have.
because I get in arguments with people, astrologers, about this all the time. They say to me, "You cannot predict
Amazing.
death," and I'm like, "Oh yes, I can."
Yes,
And
I can.
just because you can't doesn't mean I can't.
Right. I'm
Now, and
hoping
this
I
is
make it. I'm
well.
hoping I make it.
This is why I
Because
want
I
a
have a
caveat on this though.
7-year-old granddaughter that I'd like to see just a little bit longer, but it's okay. I can watch
But
over from the
this is
other
why I want to get to
side.
the caveat. One thing that I have learned in that is
Mhm,
that, yes, because I focused a lot on death, obviously, with Dorothy. She taught me a lot about
mhm.
death to the point where, as an example, I told my husband at the time, I think you need to go spend some time with your father. That's how I
Yeah.
handled it. I'm not going to say, I think your father's dying in a week.
Mhm.
Instead, I'm going to say, I think you need to go spend some time with your father. He took him fishing. He dropped dead a couple of days later. So at that point, he's looking at me like, you knew. But yeah, okay. So in that case, yes. Now, did I say anything? Did I freak somebody out? No, I just said, go spend some time with your father. Now,
Right.
the other side of this is the first time I started catching on to this is my grandmother. And I saw my grandmother's death coming. Thank God my mother was an astrologer because I showed her the chart. I go, are you seeing what I'm seeing? She goes,
Mhm.
yes. And I said, then I'm going to come spend that weekend so that we're around her when this happens.
Right.
So I made an excuse. I came to spend the weekend. 2 o'clock in the morning, I hear a thump. Grandma goes down in the hallway.
Yeah.
We called because I was awake and like prepared for it. We had the
Mhm.
paramedics there in 2 minutes and they brought her back.
Oh
Now,
wow.
then I'm going, no, wait a minute. She died exactly like we said, thought, but they brought her back. So then I
Mhm.
started getting curious about near death experiences and I started tracking down all these NDE people and getting their charts and going, oh my God, they died exactly like the chart said when everything, but they
Wow.
came back. Now, and then the funny thing, why I brought this up is a woman tracked me down about a week ago. She's like, oh, I found you on Facebook. You can find anybody now. She says, you told me I was going to die of an overdose. And she said that year, and she said, I died of an overdose that year. And I'm going, but I'm talking to you. And
Yeah.
they
Right.
brought me back. I'm like, oh. but she's like, I just had to tell you you were right, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it wasn't
yeah.
that I remember at that time I was worried about her offing herself with the drug. So of course I'm
Mm.
gonna, you know, but that's where you get into free will because going back to my mother, when I saw my mother's death coming. Now, here's how I thought we could change it because when you have a solar return every year, it's cast for where you are at that time. Now, if you
Solar
go far
return
enough,
every year.
yeah, you have a solar return every year, somewhere around your birthday.
Oh,
It's
oh,
not
oh,
always the
oh,
same
oh,
day,
yes,
but
yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
you get
Solar
a
return.
solar return. Now,
Oh,
that
yes,
solar
yes.
return is greatly affected according to where you are.
Right.
So, I thought if I could get her back east for her birthday, she would have a different solar return. And I told her that. I'm like, look, if we get you back east, it's going to suck. Another example, what I mean by this, I saw paralysis coming in my chart one time.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, I got to get out of here. I don't want to wind up in a wheelchair. Oh my God, what am I going to do? So
Right.
that's one of the reasons I went to visit Dorothy is I figured, okay, if I get far enough back east, I'll change the degree, the house, etc. And the ironic thing is when I landed, literally when I landed in Nutley, New Jersey, my face blew up like a balloon and I had Bell's palsy.
Oh my God, yeah.
So
But
my
you,
face
so
actually was
you,
paralyzed.
you still got it, but you
I
didn't get it
softened
like
it.
you weren't in the wheelchair.
Exactly. I thought
Yes,
if I'd stayed in Nebraska, it was going to
got
be like my whole body. But
it. Right.
somehow, yeah, literally, I landed, in New Jersey. My face goes, and
Mm-hmm.
my face was paralyzed for 2 months. So
Mm-hmm.
I kept zapping it with electricity and taking supplements, and I mean, really visualizing. I'm like, I am not going to have a paralyzed face. So I kept working on it
Yeah.
and got it back. And again, even that, by going to New Jersey when I did, I also was not only able to soften it, but I was able to change my fourth house, which is how it ends up. So just
Huh.
that's what I mean about the power of
So
our
when I get
knowledge.
that transit, I should go someplace where it won't be real.
It wasn't just transit, it was in my progress too.
Oh, it
Because
was
the
in your
transit, yeah, you gotta do the
the
natal
progression.
progress transits. Otherwise, the transits are just blips. Major events are gonna be in your progressions, not the transits. The transits just kick it off. That's it. They just kick
Well,
it off.
that's interesting because I looked at my transits the other day and I saw that I have the eclipse did go through that one too
Hmm.
because Neptune
It
I
triggers events. Yeah.
Scorpio now as my rising. Neptune's in the first, and it was squared Mars, a wide square, 20 degrees, I think Mars was, and 24, because my Neptune's retrograde natally. So I think it was like 24. So I think it was the same exact degree in my first house. So
Hmm.
I saw that and I was like, okay, definitely the same kind of access I continually keep get me, the public, me,
Hmm.
partnerships, me, the way other people see me. Uh, and these are all things that I feel so much more comfortable with now. Maybe
Right.
because of Saturn in my name. I'm trying to figure it out myself. That's why I'm like going off with
That's
you a
why we got
little
to
bit.
talk to each other. No, this
Yeah,
is what I
I
mean.
was
You're
going off
exactly
a little
right.
bit with it because I'm thinking to myself, that okay, Neptune in the first obviously can trigger off my psychic abilities, which
Can.
it can, progression wise. I have Jupiter in the 12th, but it's unaspected. Well, I think it might be biquintal or something, but I'm not gonna.
Well,
I don't
let's talk
remember.
about the Neptune though. And this is why,
I'm
okay,
just saying that, I'm looking at it like what it is right now in my own identity, that now I'm like back into full blown wanting to get into my astrology, wanting to get into these. These are all things that, like coming back to the person that younger me that, wanting to dig into something.
well, see, now
Where,
you hit on why I really wanted to somehow, I'll have to do it next week. This is what we
yeah,
hit
I
on
know.
because I'm going to give an example. And again, newer astrologers can fall into this. You're seeing Neptune in the first. I'm hearing you're automatically thinking it's you. It might not be you.
Right.
Neptune could be your husband. It could be a parent. It could be, I mean, it could be your dog. I mean, how do
Mm,
we know it's
I
you,
understand
first
what
of
you're
all?
saying
You know,
because it's progressed, and like you're saying, when I look at my progressions, right, and I saw that it
there's a way to tell if
that it
something is
progressed
you, right?
to
First of all, because you don't own everything. In other words, like, um,
gotcha.
something that's coming in may not. Okay, when I was young at this, I would see, like, for example, I'd see a lot of money coming. And then all of a sudden, my best friend got a huge check and I got zip. And I'm going, huh? Or I'd see pregnancy. I didn't get pregnant, but my best friend got pregnant. And I'm going, huh? That's when I began to
Right.
understand, wait a minute, and that's where Ivy Jacob Goldstein was very important to me to see that we have all these people and situations and our business and our pet. All of these things are in our chart. We've got to decipher out what's us, first of all, or what's them. Like, what's
You
my
know
daughter?
what? You're absolutely right, because when I had Pluto go over my moon, 25 degrees Capricorn, Pluto, 3 times because it retrograde. And I
Mm,
thought, oh my goodness, I could lose my mother. I could lose my father. I mean, he's more nurturing
possible.
than she was. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I go through all these things. And and then and that was actually the kickoff, I think, of like really things at the time. I think there may have even been a lunar eclipse at that time, around that time at some point. Um, and I remember hearing from my old neighborhood where I had raised my son and had really a lot of friendships and connections, they were all starting to die.
Yeah.
That's what happened. It was my old the shedding of the old life, in a way, of
Hmm.
that. It was a total transformation that happened. And here I was, kind of remote viewing it in a sense,
Hmm.
because it wasn't necessarily anyone close to me, in my immediate family, my husband, my his, that was that. But we did hear that Joe's mother had pancreatic cancer, and she passed away when I told my husband, that is, I said, you got to start exactly what you did.
But see, you hit on, you have to identify who. Now,
Yeah.
first of all, is
It
who.
was motherly, but it was from other people's stuff.
Yeah,
What?
because
Right.
sometimes I'll see things, for example, just as an example, I have Jupiter
I
ruling
always
my
wanted
fifth
to know what
house.
that was. Yeah.
Well,
But yeah,
there's a way, and that's why I'm okay. Next week, I'm going to figure out how to show you how to
okay.
tell who it is. First of all, you've
I
got to
agree with
identify
that.
who you're looking at because it may not be you. And like, just an example, my daughter is my fifth house, of course, which is Pisces, and she is a Pisces, but it's Jupiter. Now, granted, is she Jupiter or is she Neptune? Now, I've learned from tracking both of them long enough to know that Jupiter is her in my chart. It's not necessarily me, but if something, say, is afflicted on Jupiter, I know I got a problem with her. And, but that's because I know she is that Jupiter because it rules my fifth. Okay. And the same now, um, one thing, give you an example, like we know that Uranus, for example, is at 27 Taurus, which
Yes.
I have Mars at 29 Taurus in my seventh. So I got
Mm.
Uranus right smack on my Mars.
Yeah, you're
Now
gonna be.
yeah,
Yeah.
now that, because I'm getting at why I started doing this. Now that's squaring my natal Pluto at 4 Virgo in the 10th. Now, 4 Virgo is what they call the Widowmaker or death. Okay, now I'm looking at a
Well,
pretty strong aspect, that 29 Taurus squaring the Widowmaker in the 10th. I mean, this
I
could be
have
a problem
Jupiter
for me.
at 4 degrees
Here's the thing, I got a Scorpio ascendant. Mars and Pluto could be me. I mean, because that's my ruler in the chart. So I'm looking at, okay, this is me. That's a really violent, dangerous aspect. Now, so what am I doing? I'm starting true crime psychics. I'm taking on true crime cases. And I'm doing that for my own survival because I'm going, if I don't deflect this energy off another way, what am I looking? Yeah, I could probably keel over dead with this kind of thing. I mean, that's a
or
very
you
violent,
could,
dangerous aspect, right?
now
I
could,
could pick.
but could you be the one to be violent also? You know what I'm saying? Like it's good to
Well,
have, I'm just curious as to what the difference
oh,
is.
that crossed my mind. Like, can I
Yeah.
deflect this? Of course, I'm going, can I deflect this? Maybe I am going to keel over dead. Maybe my neighbor who's crazy is going to come stalk me and kill me because I do have a crazy neighbor. And so, and he
No,
does
I
scare
mean,
me.
like, could you be the person who would have to violently defend yourself or something?
Possibly.
My point of
Oh,
like, could
exactly.
it
Yeah.
be you actually having to hurt someone? How do you decipher?
Ah,
It's
how do you
very difficult.
decipher it? And
Yeah,
that's again why I
how do
love
you?
Ivy. Ivy brought up if somebody is going to physically attack you and injure you, that is going to show up on your body.
Okay,
And she said, so if you want to know if it's really going to hurt you, like put you in the hospital, you have to look at that, which would be the sixth house for your health, 12th
okay,
house for the hospital. So, yeah, I'm looking at my sixth and 12th. Am I seeing, and of course, Saturn rules the body. What's going on with my Saturn? Okay,
right.
well, I've got Jupiter right now. Jupiter is at 15.
Cancer,
Jupiter is at what, 15
15
Cancer
cancer.
right now?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's opposing my Saturn. So I got Jupiter protecting my Saturn actually right now. So, but also
That's
Saturn to
been my
Jupiter means I'm
saving.
finally losing some weight. So
Right.
I am losing weight because of the Saturn Jupiter. And that's also hitting my ascendant. But I look at my ascendant. Do I have anything looking like it's hurting my ascendant? Do I have anything hurting my body? Do I have anything putting me in the hospital? No, I don't see any of that. So
Yeah,
I do see, oh, I can deflect this off into starting a true crime
because
podcast where
the
we're talking
seventh
about,
house.
yeah, murders and traffic. So I can push this energy in a more positive direction. But
That's
if I don't do that, I am worried how it would express itself otherwise. You see what I'm saying? But
yes,
also that tells me it's
that's
time. I'm sitting there going, okay, my head, should I really start a true crime podcast after all these years? Because I haven't done that kind of thing for 30 years. So my head's like, and then I'm like,
well,
no, it's time.
I think you definitely have the ability. You have enough stories to even, put your, even your past first to, put your past out there would be a definite that, and then move into, current things. And then, you're always going to be going back and forth. I mean, look at the way you and I have gone back and forth.
Well,
Uh,
you know what happened? I don't know if you've
so
ever heard
you
of
get,
Joan.
be
Things,
nice
well,
to,
here's an idea I have, and I think you'll love this idea. I think you'll get a kick out of this idea. You too, Riki, is
yeah.
that um, I don't know if you guys remember, heard of Joan Quigley. Joan Quigley was exposed. There was a big scandal when she was exposed to being the Reagan's astrologer when, Reagan was in the White House. And there was a huge scandal about them having an astrologer. Okay.
Yes,
Now,
yes, yes. Well, he
okay.
also didn't he have a private
It was
inauguration the night before because the
absolutely, she
moon was
timed
great, of
everything.
course.
She
Okay.
timed his inauguration so he wouldn't get assassinated because he
Mhm,
was coming up under a lot of assassination
mhm.
planets. So she deflected that by changing his inauguration. She timed his meetings. She timed his flights. She timed all kinds of things. And a lot of people
Yeah,
actually credit her for how he got through that term without getting killed, because she was timing everything. But when it came out and, hit the news, there
I
was all this
see.
scandal. Okay. And think about it. What if, do you think Trump wants to get exposed for having an astrologer? So what
Oh,
I found,
I was
well,
gonna ask you that because I think they have like the
oh, they
pay
do. Trump does have one, but here's their
because
problem is that
the Mercury.
well, this is the thing. Now, up until a certain point, okay, they had
Mhm.
private astrologers and consultants, but now, as you can tell with technology, people are getting a hold of all kinds of tapes. So this is what I've been hearing back is that these people at a very
Mhm.
top level, okay,
Mhm.
believe in it, want it, use it, but they are afraid of it getting exposed. Okay, so I've been talks back and forth. And then I brought up, I said, well, let me ask you this. What if, because they also do things so they can have, what is it, plausible deniability. I say, what if we were able to create like a board or a blog or a forum or something like that where we had a group of really talented people, right,
Yes.
that could weigh in on these heavy decisions, you know, and you were just a subscriber to this.
Right.
Okay. Like,
I
and then
understand.
because it's behind a paywall, if we make it expensive enough, not everybody's going to get behind that paywall, right?
Right.
So, you're just a member, or you could even be logged in, say, under a pseudonym. That's what I'm hearing they want. And that includes detectives. Because think about a detective on a murder case right now. If it got out that he got his information from an astrologer, could blow the case. Totally, that's grounds for appeal. And I
Right.
see that with my legal background. However, if he is John Doe and he happens to subscribe to this, forum where all these astrologers are weighing in on a case, he can get his information in a way that doesn't affect the case. So
That's
that's what
true.
I'm working towards doing right
I
now.
think that's an excellent, excellent idea, and I think you definitely have the mind to do it for
Well,
sure.
I'm trying, that's what I'm scouting. I'm scouting the people where I can say, hey, look at this case, or look at this political event, or what do you think? And that, if you look
Hmm.
at my Mars Uranus square Pluto in the 10th, perfect. Because
Yeah.
also Pluto in the 10th is also the elites, the
Yeah.
big corporation guys, the big, like somebody behind a large corporation or government that needs to be hidden. That's Pluto, you know?
Right.
So,
Right.
and 10th is somebody very powerful. So, I mean, that's where I'm seeing,
And
yeah,
also you achieving that, like you said, in a later time, you ascending to your 10th house and your career, reinventing your career.
yeah. And with the internet, I'm finding you guys are all over the place. Like you're back east and Ricky's in another state. And so if I have this, forum, you guys can clock in whenever you want to, give me your 2 cents on a case, and it
Right.
goes out to the subscribers. But that's kind of where I'm trying to find that talent where we can
Yes,
talk to each other about these cases, but also have that subscription base of people that want the information, but not directly.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I could get into the technical aspects of it, maybe instead of the gory details, I
Yeah.
would totally be open to that. As far as like an event, looking at it as an event and looking at what's happening. I'm saying for me, like, oh no, like I even like I said, if I watch gory things, but maybe by placing my intellect over my emotional person, I
Well,
can
that certainly
definitely do
sounds a
that.
lot like Saturn Neptune that you're describing, honestly. You
Well,
know?
yeah, because Saturn, yeah, it's still in my seventh house in
Mm-hmm.
Aries. Now it's in Aries, but I'm getting ready for my second Saturn return in
Oh God, your
late,
second one?
yeah, my in late it's 24 Aries, so it's not like right
I
away.
just
But
finished mine.
yeah,
What?
I felt she just finished yours.
Yeah.
I'm actually really not as afraid as like I said, I try to talk to Saturn. Listen, you don't have to beat me over
You
the
got to work
first
with Saturn. You
head.
do. You have to work
Okay,
with
I
it.
will listen to what it is you're trying to tell me, you bastard.
Yeah.
And I've been, that's where the second one is. The first one you like, you don't really know. But all my life, I have had responsibilities and delays because of my responsibilities to my child, to my mother and father, to everyone else, helping my husband raise his son, all of these
Mm-hmm.
things. And now I am in a different place. After
That
that,
sounds like me.
yeah, that Saturn Neptune helped me.
How did it hit you, Ricky? If you just came through it, what
Yeah,
happened to you?
really. What happened?
Um, Mine was a lot of like relationship changes. I think I
Okay.
became a lot more of a secure person. setting more boundaries type
Yes.
of thing.
That makes sense.
Moving into my own apartment. My kids are all finally adults.
Right.
You know, it was a big change I went through.
Yeah. See, I have a son who's 36 and he's married. He's has an excellent relationship. I have a granddaughter who's 7, but I have a stepson who's going to be 23. So he still lives with us. So I'm still in that mode. However, I don't have to change his diapers,
No.
but
Yeah,
sometimes it feels that way.
Oh,
But
I
my
hear you.
youngest son is going to be 22 and he lives here as well, but he's
yeah,
very independent. So
yes, he works. He does
yeah,
his thing.
yeah.
See,
We
Rika
have a
and I
Um,
lot
have
of
that
in
in
common
common. We
there.
both have the Scorpio ascendant, and
Yeah.
I've got my daughter who's 34 living with me. She's got,
mhm.
her son living with her. So yeah,
Well, I
but
have progressed Scorpio ascendant, so can't I be a
oh,
part of
well,
the
there you go.
There you go. You can be a part of our Scorpio club.
But see, now you
What
just
is
explained what I
Renata?
said about the clicking. If you've got a progressed Scorpio, that would draw you to us because
Exactly.
people
That's
would
why I'm
like
saying, John.
angles, and the angles may not show up in the progressions. You're right.
What's
So
Renata's
that's what
rising
drew you
sign?
in,
Well, also too, don't you think by me having Pluto also on the ascendant, with that taking over, I've read multiple articles on in books about how planets in a house like that take over even more so than the sign itself.
You know
Uh,
what else we have in common?
yes,
You were talking about, well, and you kind of gave me a little insight, your T square and whatever pointing to your
yes,
Saturn. Well, I have two yods, and one points apex is Saturn and the other apex is Venus.
yes. That's
But
what
when you
I'm
said
saying.
that about Saturn, I was like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it's just no. Well, I said that Saturn is the apex to my yod, to my. It's like
Oh, I didn't
within.
hear you say that. Yeah.
Yeah,
sounds
Yeah.
like you guys got a lot of relationship stuff in common then.
yeah, we yes,
So
I'm sure.
but your apex is in seventh house.
No, my apex is in the eighth house, and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it's
Mine's
in
in
the
the
eighth.
fifth house.
That's all. That'll be kicking off my, which I don't look at it in a negative way. I really
No.
don't. I look at it when it's kicking off my Neptune in the third and my Uranus in the first. Well, what am
Yeah,
I
my life
doing
is
right now?
better.
What am I doing right now? I'm getting more into the astro, getting more serious about technical astrological things and about balancing something out in my life where no, I can't be all accessible to everything. I have to now
Exactly.
really
That is,
truly
yep.
Yeah.
be about myself. I ran for friggin' local office recently because Saturn, I got those 10th house fucking planets. I gotta do something. Plus, my Mercury is on the midheaven, which rules my chart. So I'm like, these are all thin. That sextiles that, and I'm Saturn sextiles that, but Saturn
But
was
it all
squaring
fits.
the
You're
shit
leaning more
out of
into
it.
astrology. You're communicating more about intuitive things. And also, you're putting more
I'm
of the
doing
career emphasis, communication on your career, certainly. You know,
right.
Mercury's
But I'm
going to bring
saying
you talking to more people.
Saturn and Neptune was squaring that for a
Hmm.
very long time, that 27 degrees of Mercury that I have.
Okay.
It was squaring it. So I was being challenged mentally, but
Hmm.
I wasn't confused. I was actually very driven to find out more. So I used the Saturn in a way to give me the discipline to really get into my reading again and that kind of thing and
If
not
you hadn't, though, that would have put a
sitting
real
on my
strain on you.
mind and you know
But that's it. That's what I was about to say. If you had not done it that way, it would have put a strain on you the other way. So you
right.
did a positive expression of that energy.
Well, I
Oh,
believe it was
nice.
because of astrology. I that I
Hmm.
was able to say, okay, like what's the outcome? I mean, really, in this situation, either I'm going to transform into something or else, or I'm going to really transform. You know, for
Yeah.
See, you
the
also hit
period.
on why I don't like when people say, there's a couple things that just irk me online. I see a lot of this when they talk about like bad transits. No, I don't think it's necessarily bad. Can be, but it's not
It's
going to be my
fucking
first
hard.
jump to. There's a
But
lot of things that if
sorry,
you
let
express them in positive ways, it can be really, depending on how you express it. Okay. The other thing is a lot of this stuff that I see about compatibility drives me up the wall because honestly, compatibility has got nothing to do in my mind with real life relationships. I see
No.
people that love each other all the time, they're not together. I see people hate each other that are together. I mean, to me, it's are you with this person or not with this person? Screw this compatibility shit. Synastry, I don't understand the point. I mean, like, so what? I mean, I want to know real life stuff. Like, is this
Well, I
person
tell,
hurting me? Are they helping
yeah,
me? Are they staying with me? Are they leaving? I mean, I want to know real world stuff about something, you know?
I agree with you on that. And when I have, because I have a lot, I try to keep myself abreast of, of the new and the exciting. I have a few millennial friends. They're like in their late 30s.
Hmm.
And they are constantly asking me, well, I met this guy and, I'm like, look, do you feel a connection with him? Because come back to me. But I do look and I say, I would love to be able to tell you, yes, your Venus trines, they're Venus and you are. But the real true relationships come from your Saturn aspects together,
Hmm.
your
That's right.
challenges, because
Yep.
you're not with that person unless you have something to work the hell out.
That's it.
Yeah.
Unless there's a Saturn connection, they're just
Yeah.
fluff. They're just
It's
fluff. They're just
yeah.
passing through, you know?
Exactly. I always say that. And that was one of the things that my first astrology teacher told me because he's like, don't get into that shit. You know what I mean? Like, he was like, really like, no, you're not going to be one of them. I see that your Venus trines. No, you're going to get into because people are usually in crisis when they come to you.
That's right.
Yeah. And that really resonated with me, and I was happy that he told me that. But I think that I also had, I'm sure you both can understand this, you also had the capacity to get it,
Hmm.
where that takes a certain aspects for sure. Pluto's like you were talking strong Pluto, uh,
Hmm.
strong Saturns. Uh,
Hmm.
not, I mean, not in the sense of strong, but challenging Saturns. Because I mean, my Saturn is strong when it sextiles my Mercury, but it's that's probably about it. So, but
Well,
in
it
the end,
certainly is it is gonna draw more people to you wanting advice, certainly. You know?
I think so. But that's just my husband calls me Lucy. He said, "You're
Lucy?
Lucy." Yeah, from the Peanuts. Step up,
Oh,
the psychiatrist. Like she's got a psychiatrist is open 5 cents because everybody come. I could be sitting on a porch, just like people will just stop and start to tell me their life
what's your moon
story.
at? What's your moon
20,
at?
25 degrees of Capricorn.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're
but
like the
it's in the
grandma.
it's in the fifth house.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They look at you. It's interesting. They look at me and Ricky as mother, and they'll look at you and they're like grandma, which is a different
yeah,
energy. Yeah.
yeah,
You're the
yeah.
more
Well,
older, wiser type of figure to them.
yeah, I have to agree because it's always been. I've actually had people get angry with me and say, like, cry if they were having a difficult time. You're supposed to know these things, and I'm like, I don't know everything. I really don't. Like I just know maybe more than you do. In this
Yeah.
particular situation, but I don't know everything, and I kind of want to be able to I do want to be able to share that. That's why I took this position in the community, trying to get the community together because I do want to share that aspect of myself, like you were talking about, even with
Yeah.
if it happens to be with crime, where
Well, there's a
you're
way to do it positively.
where
Like one of the
where
things
you're
that you have to be
helping
careful
on
of.
a larger scale than just your immediate people.
See, one of the
That-
things I would advise you of, because I have the same problem too, is, or anyone that has this challenge, For
Mhm.
example, let's say Neptune is coming around your ascendant or your first house or whatever. Now, that means that people are going to be getting that energy from you. Now, there's a positive and there's a negative expression of that energy. Now, I
Yeah.
talked to Ricky about I'm working on like a costume, like a persona that I'm putting together. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I've got this Pluto Neptune going as far as my image. Now,
Right.
that means I could be looked at as a complete Fruit Loop, you know, or I can make myself, Neptune's also costuming and image and a branding. Okay, so I've been looking at, okay, I'd rather have a branding and an image than be looked at like a Fruit Loop, right? So
Yes, that
there's
that
ways to get
that does
control of it.
happen.
Yeah,
Yes.
now Saturn, they can look at you as very cold. They're
Yes, but
distant,
I'm not.
like unhip, right? Or rigid. They can, I mean, look at all the Saturn negatives that they can look at you. However, if you convert that to the loving grandmother who bakes some cookies and that they
Right.
can come talk to you, that's a different Saturn energy you can feed into. But this is
Absolutely.
by no, that's why you have to know. If you know, oh, this is what I'm dealing with, and let me take a more control over this, and get a better reaction. That's where some things like where I know that if somebody is connecting to me on that level, even I can
Yeah.
take a different tack. For example, I learned a long time ago that if anybody connects to my Neptune, they're scamming me. So
Yeah.
I've learned
And
to
you
back
said
away
where
from
was
that.
your Neptune again?
Well, let's say somebody calls me right as my Neptune's lit up, which my Neptune is 7 Taurus. And if
7 to
somebody
okay.
calls me with the moon at 7 Taurus or say 7 Scorpio, I know this person's out to get something out of me.
That's interesting.
So that
Interesting.
puts me on guard right away. But it's also, that's why I believe in keeping a diary. And I call it an astrological diary. Because over the years, I've written down so many of these things that I know that every scammer because here's the thing about my Neptune is I would say to myself, how did they get past me? I can read everybody else like a book. How did this person get past me? They were hitting my Neptune. That I've
Right.
got that blind side. So
It
now I've
was
learned to be
yeah, it
careful,
was okay.
But that's
Um,
like I've had major, major car accidents that almost killed me a few times. The moon was always at 26 Leo. So now when the moon is at 26 Leo, I stay in the house,
you stay in the house.
I
Right.
mean, I've just learned by keeping a
That
diary, these are my money days, these are my bad days, these are the days when somebody's going to try to pull one over on me, and I just, kind of, act accordingly, you know?
interesting. Very,
It,
very interesting stuff.
it's like, well, after so many murder charts, for example, you'll see it too. As we get into more of these cases, you'll see Moon was in the eighth house. Moon was in the eighth house. It's either a rape, a kidnapping, I mean, this is horrible stuff when, if you leave the house with Moon in the eighth, it's, bad. So now if I start to go out with Moon in the eighth, I don't go out. I just wait a little
Right.
while you know,
Right.
because,
Right.
I mean, I don't have the time to sit down and look at every single aspect of my chart every day.
No,
Who
I
does?
understand that. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
So
Yeah,
I
but
just have little things to
I
learn.
definitely look at the moon cycles, and being a Cancerian, how could I not? Three planets in Cancer, which makes me very youthful, and I love being a Cancerian. I can feel my Cancerianness a lot of times come out, but Saturn. Well, I could tell you when you said that thing about the grandma, nothing brought me, and I was 50 years old. I wasn't an old grandmom, you know what I mean? I'm not an old
Hmm.
grandma at all. And I'm 50 years old and I'm having a grandbaby. And I said, it was like, I was like, okay, I can die right now, is what I said when I saw her. I was like,
Hmm.
I can go. I've my legacies I'll live on forever. There she is. Oh, goodbye, bye world. you know, but it was like I felt this sense of just, and people were like, "Oh, you can't call yourself a grandmom." I'm like, I am calling my handles are not your average grandmom on X and everything else because I'm not, but I love being one. It really
Exactly.
is true. And they moved away to the UK for 2 years. And I'll tell you, that was a tough thing for me because I had that baby every day. And then, but we went and saw them. But that's the thing, you can't keep your kids back. You know, you got to fly their
Nope.
way. But now they're back. Now they're back. So they've been back a couple of years. So it's been really good again. Like for me to have to be able to see her all the time. You know, that's
Yeah.
always. I would hate it if they lived across the ocean. But I'll tell you, one of the sobering moments that I felt when my son was coming back to the UK, he said, "Well, Mom, I can't live anywhere in the United States. I have a girl." And that really like broke my heart. I grieved,
Mhm.
I've grieved that too. I've grieved my country in a lot of ways. That I think people have collectively felt with that Neptune and Pisces for these last 14 years.
Yeah.
The con man, or you were going to see it and rise above it. And
Mm-hmm.
I really do think, I don't know what you guys think about this. I wanted to ask you. I know we probably have to get off because it's, but
Yeah, we'll wrap it up soon. But go ahead. What's your question?
uh, I felt, when he had walked down that escalator, there was, I believe, wasn't it that Neptune had made its way a little bit into Pisces and then retrograded back and then
Mhm.
came in again. And I thought to myself that because of the sun, thinking about the sun going around the entire zodiac, and then getting to Pisces, where Pisces, it's collected all the stuff. And
Mhm.
then you're getting ready to be reborn again and be re-released again at 0 degrees of Aries. And that's the way I felt about Neptune when it was in Pisces. This collectiveness, and the people that didn't get on board were
Yeah.
they're never getting on board. Like they're like how people say, oh, maybe people will see the light. Like I think that see the light past
Mhm.
it's already passed. Like the light, you're either knock up. I don't know how you feel about that whole experience of Neptune and Pisces. Maybe it was a little bit more intense for me because it was in my sixth and seventh house. It's still still there in the seventh house.
Mhm.
But I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well, again, it's going to affect okay. That's
It's going
why
to
next week I'm gonna figure out a way to get the printer working so I can
okay.
show you what I mean by this is
All right.
because I'll give you an example right now. Okay, supposedly there's like a really big flood happening in Hawaii right now.
Yes, I
Okay,
saw
is that
that.
affecting us?
No.
No, not really. I
Mhm.
mean, we're not affected by that flood. Now, maybe if we have a close relative, it would affect us. Now, when you're looking at the general transits like that, which is
Mhm.
what you're dealing with horoscopes generally,
Right.
or forecasts like that, you're dealing with general things. You know, is that going to affect you in any way? That's the first place that you have to start.
Okay.
Now, otherwise, oh yeah, it's raining in Hawaii, they're having a flood. Isn't that awful? All right. Is that
Yeah.
had any impact on me? No. If I own property in Hawaii? Yeah. So I
Okay.
mean, when I look at these things, what I'm looking at is does this have any relation to me? Okay? Because
Right.
even if you look at the general horoscopes, I mean, I
Mhm.
don't know if you guys know this, forgive me if you do, but a general horoscope, for example, my sun sign's in Leo. So if I look under a Leo, okay, they're taking every Leo 1/12 of the population. Well, my sun's at 9 degrees. That's going to be completely different than somebody whose sun is at 29 degrees. They're going to have a completely different
Right.
experience to this. And then you've got aspects, and then you've got progress. I mean, there's so much in there that I really think you just have to focus on, is this anything that I have to deal with? You know?
God.
Like the
Well,
same
I
thing with
always feel like I don't know, because you're saying about when you felt the need to go to that person and tell them, where's the map? Give me the map. I know that they're in the river.
yeah.
The map. That
Well, that's something
feeling.
I learned from Dorothy, is I learned that the angles, well, that's something I learned with Dorothy, is she used to impress upon me, and that was true. When I would go back over cases I was drawn to, there's common angles. We connected because of common angles. And what
Okay.
you'll find is that people that you feel that bond with, or cases that you get drawn to, or subjects even you get drawn to, or this
Yeah.
kind of thing, there's going to be common angles. And we
Gotcha.
we have those common angles, and here we are clicking. And to show you how fated that was, last Sunday I tried to pull it up. I still, my charts aren't even working. I'll bring them next
Really.
week. I'll get it working next week. But last week I told Riki
And we
there's going to
won't
be
have Mercury
but
retrograde.
here's the
We won't
thing.
have
I was
Mercury.
debating, well, to look ahead, I was debating, are we going to have class this Sunday on the 15th, right? I looked last week and I told Ricky that we're going to have 3 people. I said somebody new is going to join us because there were 3 signifiers in the meeting. And here we
Oh,
are, we have three
really?
people. So you being here is meant to be, but you have a
Oh,
common
I
angle.
know that.
That's
Because
what I'm
I was
saying.
reluctant. I was reluctant because of the Mercury retrograde, because it is my ruling planet, even though it's not really making any kind of crazy, angles to my chart. But I thought, you know
But that's
what?
it. It's no crazy angles. But all
I'm
the Mercury
conscious
retrograde is going to
enough
do.
to know that I'm committed to this. It's already been, you know what I'm saying? I had that in my mind, and I thought, I'm just going for it. I'm not going to
Well, the
delay.
only thing Mercury retrograde means here is you're going to come back. It's just a
Yes,
general rule. Anywhere you go on a Mercury retrograde, you're going to go back. So that just means you're going to come
exactly.
back.
Exactly. Oh, I'm definitely, I don't know. When I read a couple of your articles, I thought to myself, your posts,
Hmm.
which Facebook, it's such a shame. It's such a dead
Yeah.
site, even though it really is. I find some of the best stuff in there, but yeah, I have to go looking for it. And I found you from Lynn's group.
Hmm.
And I was like, let me look. And I said, you know what? I don't know what it is about this woman, but I want to know her. I really do. I want to. There is something about her. She seems to, the way that you expressed yourself, you put yourself out there,
Yeah.
with like a kind of like for me, I put myself out there, and Saturn always says, honey, don't put yourself out there until you're ready to be put
But
yourself.
again, I've got this Mars squaring Pluto thing going on right now. So you know what? I already know I can't sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to be
That's
able to. Not with what
right.
but your progressed ascendant is what drew you in. So this is what I
Absolutely.
mean about when I look at what's going on with the planets, what I'm more concerned with is this going to affect, me and my immediate circle? Otherwise, it's all like fluff, like, oh, it's flooding in Hawaii. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, it's there, but does it have any relation to me? No. So
Mm.
I mean, that's kind of where my focus comes in with the astrology. But
I
I'll have more bugs worked out by Sunday and show you more, because that's what I'm hearing a lot about, that you guys need to know when do you need to know it's you in a chart, when to
I
worry, in other words.
definitely
So
would
I'm
like
going to
to do
focus
that,
on that Sunday for you.
because I think that's what Riki was saying, the same type of similar situations where it's like putting up boundaries, knowing,
Hmm.
where things are. Definitely. That
Yeah.
would be awesome.
Well, it's
Yeah.
also so we don't feed it, because you also hit on something about, because Dorothy's right. That's why I've been avoiding a lot of the murder cases lately, is I'm not quite ready to tune into that frequency yet.
Yeah.
Because yes, when you do tune into that frequency, you will attract things. And I do see that you're right with the emphasis on the Epstein files. They're baiting us. They want us in that frequency of fear for some reason.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of backing away from it because, like, I know what comes with that type of energy.
Well, I met a woman in New York, upstate New York, on Threads, and for whatever reason, she was drawn to me. Well, I wound up looking at her chart. She asked me to. She had Scorpio rising, Neptune, and the Moon in the first house. And she expressed, and I'm like, okay, here we go. She's obviously meant to be around me too, But she knows nothing of astrology. She's very picks up on things, but she feels that she wants to work in that file and feel and try to heal them. And I said, okay, I mean, maybe she has the capacity to do that. I said, I personally, don't want to get in that. And I haven't heard from her for about 7 days. I'm not saying that anything happened to her, but I think she may be in a dark place, because that's what my fear was for her, that she
Yeah.
would have gone to a darker place because
I
of
would look
the
at her chart to see. That's another. You got a good point, because if her chart doesn't have the capacity to look at it objectively, if she's
uh-huh.
going to get sucked into it, then no, I would caution her to stay away from it. I mean,
I
I've got, with my Pluto in the 10th, I can look at things very coldly and objectively. Not
yeah,
everybody can do that, you
yeah.
know?
Now I
All right.
can look at death that way, but
Yeah,
the fact that basically none of us are getting out of here alive. But, but I'm
exactly.
saying, like, I'm a matter of fact person when it comes to that. So
Yeah.
I
Well, listen,
understand
send me your
that's what it
chart.
means.
Yeah, send me your
Okay.
chart Sunday, and yeah, let's look at our charts, and I'll
Yeah,
show you more
we'll
of
look
what I
at all.
mean about when something is you, or maybe your kids or husband or whatever. I'll teach you how to sort out who's who in your chart, and that'll help you
I
give
would
you an
love
easier
that.
time. Okay,
That
cool.
definitely.
All right. Well,
Ricky, are you there?
are you there? Are you still with us? I think we
She
might have
muted her
lost
mic.
her.
Her mic is muted.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna let you guys go, and I'll see you
Yes.
again on
All right.
Sunday.
All
Okay.
right. I will see you Sunday.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Goodbye, everybody. Talk to you later.
Goodbye. Goodbye.